I have with me a guy today. He's a fellow cop. He's also an Army veteran. He's an author. He's a podcaster. This guy is everywhere and doing everything. Dexter Pitts, welcome to the program.
Betsy, hi. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
So, Dexter, let's get right into it. You joined the Army after 9/11/01. What were you thinking back then?
It's just like everybody else from my generation. You see the towers fall and you feel something in you spark that patriotism, that love for your country. And hey, this can't happen on my watch. And not only that, but it was a combination of that and watching the movie Black Hawk Down, which was like really inspired me. And I was like, man, I want to be like these guys that are up on the screen, these warriors, these heroes. And so I joined the Army Infantry. And as you see behind me, I was with the 10th Mountain Division. I was a 11 Bravo machine gunner. And it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, despite all the things that happened. It kind of laid a foundation for my life, and it really showed me what true patriotism and what love is, and what when you love your country, the things you will sacrifice for not only your country but your fellow countrymen and your brothers in arms.
Well, and you truly did sacrifice. You were injured by a roadside bomb that essentially ended your Army career, correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am. That was on January 2nd of 2005. We were in Abu Ghraib on Route Huskies. And if anybody remembers the name Abu Ghraib, we had the little incident there back in the day where Army soldiers were abusing prisoners. And that did not make the people of Iraq too happy. And they went headhunting. And they caught me on January 2nd of 2005.
So talk about that process of getting injured and finally getting back home.
So when I got injured, man, we had been in the same spot for days and we parked there for a third day. But it's so weird how just that day when I woke up, I knew something was different, something was off, something was weird. And I could feel somebody watching me all day. And I remember communicating to my guys and my lieutenant, like, I got a bad feeling, man. We shouldn't be here. And the next thing you know, I'm waking up, I'm inside the Humvee, and just the pain is immense. And I'm 20 years old and thinking, this is it. This is how my life ends. And, combat looks glorious in the movies like in Black Hawk Down, but when you realize there's no director to yell cut, there's nobody to push a pause button, and if you slip away into that darkness, you're not coming back. There's no intermission. And so they get me out of the Humvee. Thank God everybody survives, but I suffered the worst of the injuries because the bomb, the IED, which was 2155 artillery shells, was literally up under my seat. And so it completely shattered my left arm. It blew my molars out. My back and hips were blown out of alignment. I had a TBI, suffered a large contusion to my head. And I mean, just and along with that, the PTSD that's developed from that and just 7 months of continuous combat operations.
So you made it home and you started to heal up, and then you made the decision to go into law enforcement where
Yes,
you
ma'am.
might additionally get hurt, and talk about that process.
Yeah. So, it was when you get out of the military, you're kind of on your own. You're looking like, man, you're surrounded by these guys all the time. The next thing you know, there's nobody there. And you miss that camaraderie and you miss that feeling of service. And I was sitting at home watching a commercial and I saw a commercial for the Louisville Metro Police Department. And then I decided to go do a ride along. And I just remember looking at the officers in their uniforms. Everything was dressed right dress and the gun belts. And just the way they talked and joked, I was like, oh, this is home. And I went through the process and got hired by the Louisville Metro Police Department in November of 2009. And I was there until 2018 when I left and joined the United States Border Patrol for a small stint. But I was in the Border Patrol for about a year. Then I went to a small PD in Arizona, but I made the choice to come back to Louisville in 2020, which was when the riots started after the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor incidents. And being in Arizona, watching my city burn and watching the building that I used to patrol out of, seeing I ain't gonna say protesters, rioters destroy that building, it sparked something in me. I was like, I gotta go home. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about anything else, but just, I can't let this happen on my watch. And if God has given me the capabilities to go and be in those situations and help people and protect the city and protect my brothers and sisters, I'm going to go do it. And made that decision to take my family all the way back across the country from Arizona back to Kentucky to be in the front.
So when you went back to Louisville, of course, we're in the middle of, that immediate post George Floyd situation in law enforcement where there's just so much vitriol, so much hatred, so much vilification. And you go back to Louisville too, where you guys are also dealing with the aftermath of Breonna Taylor. Talk about that.
You know, I've been scared a lot in my life. I was scared in Iraq, but I'll be honest, I was more scared in Louisville on the streets as an officer, because in Iraq you got high powered, weaponry, you got air support, kind of know who the enemy is, but this is America. Your fellow American citizens are, you can't consider them enemy combatants. And yet a lot of these people are trying to hurt you and kill you. And I remember the night we got shot at was on September 23rd of 2020. I believe it was 2020. And my biggest fear was coming off the bus and getting caught in an open ambush with no cover, kind of like the incident that happened in Dallas, where the one guy went rogue and shot and killed 5 cops. And it happened. And I just remember the radio call, officers down, not officer, officers down. And these guys are right next to me, just ahead of me. And it still haunts me, like, and I can still hear the bullets cracking. And it's been on about what 2 years now, but it still haunts you. It's changed me. And it just changed the way I looked at the city and to look at policing, but it hasn't killed my desire to do this job. It hasn't killed my desire to be a police officer and still bring honor, and pride to this uniform and this profession.
And I'll tell you, and I remember that night as well, where everyone was just stunned that you guys were taking fire. And what we were told was, and I still remember watching some of the media say, a largely peaceful protest. You were on literally the front lines of some of those peaceful protests. Can you explain to folks, and you just did a good job, but go further. What is that like to stand on the line and have people scream at you, yell at you, spit on you, threaten you? What's that like?
It is mentally exhausting, because in Iraq, like you say, you have a base to go back to, but here you have a home to go to and your family's with you. And as you're standing on the line, you have people, you sell out Uncle Tom ass nigga, we're going to come kill your whole family. We're going to rape your daughters. We're going to rape your wife. And I remember driving home after some of my shifts. I would be going about 90, 100 down the freeway with my lights off and it's dark outside, trying to see if somebody's following me. And then not only that, I take different routes to get to my place. And then when I get to my place, I don't park in front of where I live. I park a quarter mile away and I make my way through different avenues and woods, because these people you can look in their eyes and see the seriousness that they wanted to kill you. They wanted to hurt you and your family, because they said, we're sick and tired of this treatment from you all. And I'm like, I'm not the one that's doing any of this. No, the police aren't the ones doing this to you all. These are small incidents that happen and that have been misconstrued by the media and politicians, and unfortunately, police leadership that never addressed the lies that have been put out by these situations, which put all of us in danger and in peril, but not just that, our families as well. So it was a continual, stress, anxiety, worry, and fear. It was a combat deployment. This wasn't a police shift. This was literally a combat deployment. There was nothing peaceful about this stuff. There were people that were there to be peaceful, but when the lights went down at night, and we see people pull up in a U-Haul and start pulling out bats and all these weapons and shields, these people did not want to protest. These people wanted to fight.
Right. And they wanted to hurt you guys. And again, I want people to understand this. It's not just the cops they were going after, and this is what's so frightening to us who've dealt with this kind of stuff. They wanted our families.
Exactly. They wanted our most precious treasure. And
absolutely.
Thank God, we had an incident where I forgot, it was some officer's family member got shot at. And they didn't, and it was quick and it was quiet and we never heard anything else about it. But I was, come home and hug my wife and kids. And how do you love on your family knowing that there's people out there trying to hurt you? Like, how do you let your guard down? And you're constantly up here, elevated, on red alert, ready for an attack. And you go like that for months, years. That develops complex PTSD in officers. And now we're having to deal with the fallout of all this. And this all could have been avoided just by putting out the truth instead of playing politics. And that's what baffles me about this whole thing. And like I said, it's changed. I've changed as a person. I've changed as an officer. I've changed. My family will tell you I've changed. Anybody that went through any of this has changed.
Right. And that is absolutely true. And police officer mental health is such a huge topic now. And the what we've been dealing with for the last 2 years has certainly added to that burden that American law enforcement experiences, not just physically, but emotionally, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, and it's like I said, I'm just actually coming off of I've been battling with PTSD for years, but it got worse the last 2 years. I wonder why, you know. But the one good thing is that we now have some things that are in place on the police department here in Louisville where we're letting guys go and get help, and we're trying to take away the stigma of PTSD. That, hey, we're not Superman, we're still humans. And the one thing I hate is when you have these super tough guys. I mean, I know a lot of Army soldiers, Special Forces guys, Navy SEALs, these big tough guys that nothing shakes them. But all of a sudden, this individual goes and kills themselves, and everybody's like, "What happened? Why would he do that? Why? What? I don't understand." The man is a human, and you know what? Just like our cars on the police department, you push your car for so hard, so long, and if you don't change the oil and take care of it, guess what? It gets redlined and it gets thrown out, and it's no good anymore, and it doesn't operate as it should. And it is no exception for us as police officers. People need to realize we are humans, not robots.
Right. And I think that's an important distinction because I think, really since 2015, but especially in the last 2 years, American law enforcement has been made out, we have been dehumanized,
Oh yeah.
we are made out to be these robots and killers and haters and white supremacists
Oh
and
yeah. The
all of
black face
this.
of white supremacy.
Exactly. And that's I just got to ask you, you've been in the military, now you're in law enforcement, you're very familiar with government and with the justice system. Is the American justice system, Dexter, inherently racist?
No, but I will tell you there's one thing I do agree with on the left and Black Lives Matter when they say that the justice system sucks. It absolutely does. I don't believe it's racist. I just believe it's garbage in general. I mean, we have individuals that kill people all the time and get released back into the community to reoffend. And then we have police organizations like Black Lives Matter and the Bail Reform Project that lets these people back out. And then we have these encounters with them, and then they get mad when this person gets shot and killed by the police when this person should have never been out in the first place. And we let these people reoffend the communities that are the most at risk, especially the minority communities. And we keep letting the same predators back out. So I will say that is one thing I do agree with Black Lives Matter on. There is no justice in the justice system, and it has nothing to do with color. It has everything to do with politics and money. That's it. Nothing else.
And that's the thing is we're now in a time where it seems like our justice system is more pro criminal than it is pro victim. And you deal,
Yes.
you deal professionally with crime victims all the time. And I don't think people realize just how devastating it is to be, not just to be a victim of violent crime. That's horrible. But what it's like to have your car stolen or be carjacked or have all your possessions taken out of your house. Talk about that for a minute.
And not even that, it's just the fact that they have driven so many good quality officers away from this job. And the fact that you're not going to get justice from a detective investigating your case, but it's going to take a while for somebody to get there. And there's no good, I'm not going to say there's no good officers, but the quality of officers has dropped. And I feel bad because I swore an oath to protect and defend these people. And I can only do so much because I am only one man. And now we went through this whole defund the police thing. Well, guess what? If you want good officers, it takes money. It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of time. And if you take away money, you get what you get. And you are seeing the fruits of all this now with the increase in crime throughout the nation, specifically mostly Democratic, liberal-led cities. You drive away good officers and you force them to retire early or to go seek other avenues of employment and careers. You are scraping the bottom of the barrel. And that is what we're at now. And unfortunately, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel. But like I said, I choose to remain in this job because somebody here who really cares about the people and believes in this job and this profession. And I want to hold my fellow officers accountable, but also want to hold our politicians and our police leaders accountable. We need to hold the communities accountable that, refuse to turn somebody in. This is not just something you can throw at the feet of the police like we do all the time. There is not a one trick thing that's going to get this thing resolved. It is going to take, all of us in the end to do this. It is a multiple facet approach to get this thing, resolved, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And you're a guy who you don't just stand, on the sidelines and yell at the TV or whatever. You decided to do some things. You wrote a book and you started podcasting. Tell us about the book.
So the book is I Am Pitt's Memoirs of an American Patriot. It takes you from my entire journey growing up, being in the military, getting out, my dad getting out of the military, being picked on by other black kids for being dark skinned, and giving a little background on that. And then goes into my time in Iraq, being injured, and then my time recovering at Walter Reed, becoming a police officer, and then also not just that, my divorce, and then my mother's suicide while I was on duty, and then my time in the Border Patrol, and then my time coming back to the riots. So it encloses all that. But more than anything, what I want people to get out of the book is that America is not the evil, angry, racist beast that the media is making it out to be. It's just not the case. I don't anywhere I go, I'm a very black man, and I don't encounter racists every day, hardly ever. Are they out here? Of course, but that is not the norm, and that is not the standard in this country. And the other thing I want people to take away from it is I need people to know what me and my fellow officers have endured for the last few years in this country. And so there's not a lot of curse words in the book, but there are definitely curse words and some unsavory words when it gets to the point of the protest, because I need people to know what was said to us, the fear that we were feeling, and say, this is just my perception and my perspective of the incident, but it has to be said. And right now, I'm the only active officer in the country that has written a book referencing the 2020 riots. And you know what? I don't want it to be just me. I'm just one guy. And I know there's other officers with stories out there, but a lot of officers are afraid to speak out because they're afraid of, repercussions from chain of command. But guess what? You are an American citizen before you put this uniform on. And when you put this uniform on, you do not lose your rights. I'll be damned if they can tell us we can protect and defend everybody else's constitutional rights, but we got to throw ours to the side. I don't think so.
See, and that is so brave of you to say that, because a lot of American law enforcement officers, and I run all over the country and talk to them, is they are afraid to say what they believe, because they're like you said, they're afraid to tell the truth. They're afraid to fight the false narrative. And the false narrative that's happening now is getting more and more law enforcement officers ambushed and killed, isn't it?
It is, and it happens. It's daily, daily, and it drives me crazy. And because, like I said, it could be so easily done away with if we just tell the truth of these situations and incidents. Do police always get it right? No, we don't always get it right, but 99% of the time we do. Just like the shooting they just had in Grand Rapids the other day, everybody's up in arms, and I'm like, if you look at the video from start to finish, that officer, he didn't have no choice at the end of the day. You can't put this at the feet of the officer. This man made a choice to drive a car with the wrong tags. We don't know his criminal history. We don't even know if the car was stolen. He decided to disobey the officer. He decided to run. He decided to fight. He decided to grab the officer's taser. At some point in time, we have to let people be held accountable for their actions and what they do, because we, as officers, we are reactive. It'd be different if the officer pulled the guy out of the car and was like, "Oh, look, it's a black guy," and then shot him. I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, we can't do that. We can't. But that is not what happens. But that is the picture they're trying to paint of American law enforcement, especially with the black community. And that is not the case. I've seen more white officers go and save black lives than anything I ever have in my life. And that is the norm. And that is the standard. That is the men and women I serve with daily. And I will go to bat for the men and women in blue any day of the week, because I know the character of us in this profession.
Absolutely. Dexter, I just got to ask you, what does your faith mean to you, and how does that help you continue to deal with post-traumatic stress and deal with all the frustrations and trauma that you continue to experience as a police officer?
Well, for me, my faith, it's really important because as a human being, I believe, sin and hate is real. And if it was not for my faith as a Christian in Jesus Christ, I would get to the place where I would think that the people I'm serving, even those that I feel that don't deserve my love, that don't deserve my service, I would get to the point where I wouldn't want to do anything for them, just because my nature is, you've hurt people, you deserve to be punished. But that's why I'm not God, because God says you hurt people, but guess what? I still love you and I still forgive you, and you deserve to be loved. And so I constantly have to remind myself of that if God can love me, who was a dirty, filthy sinner, and Lord knows, I tell people I'm a rough around the edges Christian. If you listen to my podcast, the I'm Pitts podcast, you'll probably hear some stuff like, man, that was a little wild. And yes, that's me. I, I'm not the ideal Christian, but my heart is in the right place. And without my faith, I don't want to think of the person I would be, because I literally would be no different than the people out here in the streets making all these bad decisions. But my faith keeps me in alignment. My faith keeps things in perspective. My job keeps things in perspective for me. When I think that my life is horrible and I start looking at other things, I'm like, you know what, my life is really not that bad. And I have something to work towards beyond just the physical, and the monetary things in this life.
Right, right. That is incredibly well said. Dexter Pitts, where can people find you? Where can they find the book?
So if anybody would like a copy of the book, I have a website, iampitts.com. You can go there and click on the Amazon button and the Barnes & Noble button, and it could take you to Amazon where you can buy a copy. Or if you want, you can buy a copy directly from me. Just send me an email at iampitts@yahoo.com, and I'll tell you how to order a copy, autograph signed copy from me. And also on social media, I'm just getting on Instagram, learning this whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's a I Am Pitts book on Instagram. And I have a TikTok at I Am Pitts, and I'm also on Facebook at I Am Pitts Memoirs of an American Patriot. I am a boomer, so forgive me for not being as up to date on all the social media.
We're all learning, right? I'll tell you, Dexter Pitts, thanks so much for spending time with us today. I'm so excited to read the book. And if you would like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Ma'am, put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Last year, law enforcement officers were involved in hundreds of thousands of use of force incidents. A use of force incident is when an officer must use nonverbal tactics to gain control of a dangerous situation.
Put the knife on the ground.
In many cases, officers have no choice but to use force when a suspect doesn't comply with a lawful order.
Use of force is always ugly. No one likes it, especially police officers.
Together, we can help de-escalate these dangerous encounters. Help police officers by complying with their lawful orders. Don't attack, attempt to disarm, or flee from an officer.
Use of force is an officer's last option. Most incidents can be avoided by not resisting arrest.
If you feel you've been wrongfully detained by a police officer, then seek a legal solution after the encounter has been resolved.
Let's keep everyone safe. Comply now and complain later.